Due to the events of the Reverie, the 7 Warlord system was abolished. And for those of you who don't like the fact that the world government dissolved this system, I suggest you take it up with Dofi and Crocodile, because high key it's their fault. But on a more serious note, the abolition of this system meant that the warlords that were still in position, such as my boy Buggy, Weevil, Mihawk, and of course the lovely Boa Hancock, are no longer allies of the world government and are now wanted pirates. So in this video, I'll be discussing the events of One Piece manga chapter 956, where we were told that Koby was sent to capture the pirate empress and my babes Boa Hancock, and I'll be looking at whether this is achievable and ultimately what I think could happen. But before I get started, as usual, make sure you leave a like on this video as it helps so much with that YouTube algorithm. And make sure you subscribe so that you can remain up to date whenever I, Mr Premps, drop more content just like this. I also want to give a special shout out to the Void Century Club, as they are currently one of my favourite One Piece forums and one I'm truly supporting. So if you do love One Piece discussions, I'll leave the link to the forum in the description to this video, so make sure you check them out. And now we have the formalities out the way, let's get into the video. So Boa Hancock is known as the Pirate Empress and resides on Amazon Lily. She was the only female warlord until it was abolished and has 2 younger sisters in which she rules over Amazon Lily with. Personality wise, I would say Boa Hancock is portrayed to be quite a handful. She comes across as a self-indulgent, spoiled, vain, and quite frankly a figure that appears to always get her own way. However, Boa is most definitely strong. You don't just become a warlord of the seas on looks alone. And so let's put some respect on her name. However, Boa does have a weakness, and it's not something you would think, because the story tells us that her beauty is her strength, and she is used to getting characters that we've been introduced to literally just falling in love with her. And that was all good until she met her kryptonite, and her kryptonite is Luffy. Luffy could not care less for Boa, and so you could say he's immune to her charm. And this reminds me of the story of the forbidden fruit and wanting what you can't have, and Boa knows that she can't have Luffy, and so her powers just won't work on him. And talking of powers, what are her powers exactly? Well, let's start off with her fruit. Boa is the owner of the Mero Mero no Mi, not to be confused with Ace's Mera Mera no Mi. Boa's fruit is actually a paramecia type and was actually force fed to her as a child when her and her sisters were slaves to the world nobles. But we'll expand on that shortly, so keep watching. So what does Boa's fruit actually do? Well, to put it simply, it gives her the ability to turn people into stone. And I must say, for the purposes of the story, it works so well for her, because if you're seduced by her, you can be turned into stone. If you have dirty thoughts, you can be turned into stone. And if you so much as touch her, guess what? You can be turned into stone. Boa uses her fruit tremendously well, from short range to long range. She can make these love arrows and directly attack multiple people at the same time, which is absolutely amazing. But this is not the extent of Boa's power. She's also a master in the art of brute force, which we've seen from her devastating kicks. And for anyone who hasn't seen One Piece Stampede, go and check it out, because honestly the animators do a fantastic showing of her power, and you literally see her petrifying through kicks, which is absolutely insane if you ask me. So as you can see, Boa's devil fruit is really strong, and she uses it really well. But this is where I say, wait, there's more, because Boa can use Haki too. And no, I'm not talking just about the basics. Boa is a user of all 3 types of Haki, which we've been told that only a handful of people in the One Piece verse can do. So if you haven't guessed it by now, what I'm trying to say is, Boa is extremely strong. So the question you're all probably thinking is, how does this affect Koby capturing Boa? Well, that's just it. How the heck is Koby going to capture Boa, who's shown us so much? I don't want to get into too much detail on Koby, but first and foremost, he's only a captain. He's not a devil fruit user, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't eaten one recently either. And on top of that, there's no way his hand-to-hand combat could match up to the likes of Boa Hancock. I wouldn't be surprised if she could petrify him too. Now hear me out, a young 18-year-old boy seduced by a 31-year-old empress. Koby, I wouldn't be mad, bruh. But on a more serious note, I guess if you're asking me whether Koby will be able to bring in Boa, then my answer is no. There's nothing in the story that can make me believe that Koby is strong enough to subdue her. However, I do think that Boa will be captured. Well, I'd like to say most likely. So let me split the two up. Firstly, plot is a massive factor in One Piece, and from very early on, we know that Koby's aim was to become an admiral in the story. So how would he be able to attain that by the end of the story when his rank is only a captain? Well, he needs to make it to rear admiral and vice admiral, and so this may just be a way for him to increase his rank. Secondly, the alternative is one that quite a few people have predicted, and most have predicted that an admiral will be accompanying Koby to capture Boa Hancock. And I wouldn't be mad at that, because Boa is strong, but she is no admiral. I've spoken to quite a few people, and most seem to think that Fujitora has been sent to capture Boa because he's blind and can't see her beauty, and therefore unable to be petrified by her beauty, which I mean, on the face of things, it does make sense. But can you imagine any admiral being so easily defeated by Boa? Because honestly, I can't. Furthermore, this is something that I debate, because there's 3 admirals, and we know Kizaru wanted to go to Wano, which means he hasn't been sent out, which leaves Fujitora and Greenbull. Surely an admiral has been sent to capture Mihawk, if he's as strong as we think he is. And let's write off the fact that an admiral is being sent to Buggy, because I don't think it takes an admiral to capture him. Although I do think he'll be getting away, but ultimately, if this was the case, there'll be 1 admiral remaining who doesn't have their hands full, and this would mean an admiral being sent to Weevil or Boa, which makes me question whether the admirals have been sent to capture the Warlords at all. Which leads me to my other theory, and that's Boa handing herself in order to protect Amazon Lily. Now remember when I said Boa was a slave? Well, Boa and her sisters escaped from the Holy Land with the help of Fisher Tiger, and Boa resents the slave mark that was left on her back by the Celestial Dragons. And this brings us full circle of her returning and losing her freedom, which funnily enough is the one thing that Luffy loves so much, which could ultimately bring forth their reunion later on in the story. But if you would ask me what I would like to see, I'd say I want to see Boa fight. I know we'll probably go down the normal route of Oda off-screen in fights and letting our imagination predict how the fight went down, but in an ideal world, I would want to see a Boa fight, and I would want Amazon Lily under the protection of the Straw Hats, and Boa pledging her allegiance to Luffy. I mean, she's in love with him anyway, so I can't see that being a big issue. But once again, this is Oda, and he might take the story in a complete different direction, and we end up with Boa and Koby reminiscing over their time with Luffy, with Koby discussing how great a pirate Luffy is and how great a person he is. And then we have Boa on the other hand talking about how she's in love with him, and it can almost become a comedic scene with Koby having to find some sort of excuse as to why he can't bring Boa in. But who knows? Well, Oda does. Or does he? I actually hope we get this expanded on in One Piece chapter 1000. So I guess I didn't give a straight answer, but that kind of brings my thoughts to the end. There's quite a few theories that are floating about as to what will happen with Boa, but honestly, it's a TBC for me. All I know is that I really want to see her and Luffy rekindle, and low-key, I'm one of those fans that has shipped them together. But as a whole, I do honestly believe she's the hardest warlord to predict what her outcome will be. But I'd honestly like to know what you guys and girls think. Do you think that Boa will get caught? Or do you think her and the Kuja pirates will easily defeat the Marines? Or do you think that Oda goes down the comedic route and has Koby and Boa reminisce over Luffy? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you like anything I've had to say, please make sure you leave a like on the video. And if you would like to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss out whenever I drop content just like this. Say